Hello, this is Brian Foster on Kardec Radio, presenting the program Spiritism and the Spirit World Around Us. Hello, this is Brian Foster on Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, all time zones in between and around the world. Today is September 2nd, the day before Labor Day in the United States, and we are talking more about the future of the earth. It's very exciting. And today we're going to talk about the future, how we're going to start fighting materialism and what things are going to change, just even socially and other things. We've been told so much by the spirit realm to prepare us for life in a planet of regeneration. But first, I want to tell you some things, and that is hello, Rosalind. How are you? We are talking about Spiritism, founded by Allan Kardec, codified by Allan Kardec in the 1850s. And this is the book you really want to start with. You can get it on PDF. And we are on Kardec Radio Facebook page. There's also a Kardec Radio app that you can put on your Apple phone or your Android device. You can just put in Kardec Radio in your the Play app or the App Store, and it's free. You can get Spiritist programs 24 hours a day. It's really great. And of course, tell your friends about it. Tell your friends about my site, nwspiritism.com. It's all different articles about Spiritism. I have my books, and this is we're talking about the future today, and this is the book we're talking about in the last section, The Future of Earth. And these are all messages that are from from very high spirits to the Reverend G. Vaughn in England in the early 20th century. He was an Anglican reverend who, of course, was then defrocked because of his communication with spirits and all what he revealed to the earth. He knew Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, H.G. Wells. They actually helped him financially after he was taken out or told to leave the Church of England. A wonderful person. And I found him by reading Spiritist literature, and then my wife pointed out his name in a gathering of spirits. This is a book psychograph called Voltaire, Return, in Portuguese, that was psychographed to Chico Xavier, and I saw his name on the list. I said, who is this G. Vaughn? Everyone else was a Spanish or Portuguese name. And I started reading his books, and they were just revelatory. And now what I've done is I've taken this in a series of 3 books, and this is the third book in a series. The first book is Heaven and Below, but you can find all these if you go to my website, nwspiritism.com. You can find all the books, and it's just fascinating reading. So let's talk about the future of the earth. So let me start this. What is one of the messages is the spirits tell us the hardest spiritual battle is beginning. And when they say beginning, this was 1917. And whatever they said about 1917, it's amazing because it's even worse now. So in their spiritual battle is fighting materialism in the West. Don't we all know that? Don't we see that every day in our culture? And what they said is a new stage, a new battle is forming. It is one that will change our culture. Oh, hello, Eliza. Will change our culture and have ramifications to our society. At the end of a message from the Spirit Kathleen to the Reverend G. Vaughn on November 17th, 1917. So we are 101 years away from this. Isn't that amazing? Concerning the difficulties of reaching out to us on earth, Kathleen tells him of the coming challenge. And she says, coming challenge. This is what she says. The time is well nigh here, and much that is helpful may be looked for and expected. For we have seen that the hardest battle before us is to conquer the materialism of the West. And we rejoice in that hard fight, as you do. And moreover, we do not weary so soon. So the spirit world sent this message in November 1917, a time that we do not see as an overwhelming consumerist culture such as ours. This is because from our vantage point, the 24-hour per day exertions to buy, borrow, spend, whatever it takes for that one more item was present. The technology to bombard commercial propaganda in every aspect of our lives wasn't yet developed in the early part of the 20th century. The spirit world has a different point of view. They look at us over centuries. They have seen the corruption of the Roman Empire, the intellectual darkness of the Middle Ages, and the lapse into superstitions. Their plan has and continue to be to promote technological advances and spiritual development for the world. They utilized Western civilization to make a great leap in technology, which affected the entire planet. This was all planned. Now, they are trying to swing the pendulum back to a balance between materialism and spiritualism. And they recognize that to place one completely over the other creates disharmony. And for people who are able to hear the voice of higher spirits, we must open our hearts and ears. And Kathleen points out this when she tells Jiva Owen. This is what she said. It is easier to speak to a Hindu than to you because he gives more entrance to spiritual matters than you do. To you here in the West, the science of organic things and inorganic things, as you suppose them to be, and wrongly, the things of substance, and also the science of exterior organization, which is the business of your state politic, are the things which have seemed of more urgency. And that work you've done very well. And it was necessary work to do. It was necessary also that your greater efforts to be concentrated on that aspect of the world's affairs. But now things is almost complete. So far as this present age is concerned, and we await you turning your mind into a higher channel upwards toward the spirit life. So what did she say? She said, a force unseen to us is moving the West and other countries to a different axis. One where buying the latest fashion is not the primary goal. Spiritual reflection and maintenance of love and harmony between all is prime. Now, we may not see how this transition will occur, but it will. Remember, time to the spirit realm is entirely different than ours. We look at things a year, 2 years. Oh my God, a decade. That is so long. They look at things centuries, right? Millennia. So, and the spirit of Emmanuel, who dictated the book On the Way to the Light to Francisco C. Xavier, Chico Xavier, which I recommend his books. On the Way to the Light, it's a wonderful book. Oh, and by the way, you can go to my website, and then you can, on the right-hand side, you can click on Allan Kardec's picture, and it will take you to the EDICI bookstore, and you can find all his books. Of course, you can find his book and Chico's books, Allan Kardec's books, I should say, other writers, Yvonne Pereira. You can also find them on Amazon as well as my books. But an EDICI bookstore, you see all, a lot of books that were originally in Portuguese translated into English, and it's a wonderful place. And actually, they have the Spirits book less expensive than they have on Amazon. So get back to On the Way to Light. So Emmanuel told Chico Xavier the details how the spirit realm, under the leadership of Jesus Christ, has guided the destiny of Earth since the beginning of its formation, and reveals the extent of the meticulous planning of our progress by our undetected superiors. Spiritism was introduced in the 1850s to commence the transition back from an age of material dominance to one more balanced. Allan Kardec, the codifier of Spiritism, under the guidance of the Spirit of Truth, brought to us what was promised by Jesus as a consoler, right? A new knowledge of our true life as an immortal spirit and comfort about our role on earth. In essence, Spiritism lays out the reasons we are on earth and what is our destiny. Oh, good. Yeah, Elijah loves you. Absolutely. Chico Xavier. We are here to learn to become civilized spirits to utilize our vast potential power for good. All of the chaos and hardships on earth are the direct results of past wrongs we have committed. The spirit world expends great effort to show us the effects of those hurtful and wrongful past deeds. Therefore, as you detect more discussions in the web sphere about the messages of near-death experience, visions, communication from high spirits, know that these are not random events, but planned by the higher power to slowly prepare us to refocus our culture on what is important. And think about it. The internet, there's a lot of bad things about the internet, too much propaganda, too much commercialism. But then again, think about this. It's also letting us pull together. When people used to have a near-death experience or had this vision or whatever, they could only tell their friends or neighbors, and it was very small. And then people say, well, I don't know if he really had that, near-death experience. But now these things are coalescing, and people are seeing, yes, they're more and more proof there is the spirit world. There is something beyond us. Now, I want to go. So now the next really a very interesting message. And again, this was a message the Spirit Arnell sent to the Reverend G. Bowen in 1919 about the future of womanhood. And this was in the early 1900s. So now I'm starting telling you about the future, right? Most of my earlier ones about the future was kind of, how they create the future, how they help us, do the future, et cetera. Now we're actually getting into what's going to happen. And think about this message as I talk about it, and in writing your comments, what you think. So in the early 1900s, the women's suffragette movement was in full stride, right? In England, there were arrests and hunger strikes for women demanding the right to vote. The communication is remarkable because it foretells where the movement will be going, the phases and the results. In summary, women will lead in the future, but not as men lead, but at a higher level of caring and kindness. Essentially, what we are told is that the world will be governed by love, not by force. So, this message stated Monday, March 24th, 1919, starts thusly. Write what we give you and do not stay to question it. When the whole is written, then read it whole and judge our message whole and not in part. I say this to you, my son, because we have that to give you which will not conform to the mind of many. Write it down notwithstanding, for we have to say what we say, and there you have it in brief. Isn't it interesting? They know that, being a man in 1919, you have this view of the world, that's just the way it is. And they said, no, write this down. Don't second guess us, right? In the entire collection of the 4 books that make up the compilation of Life Beyond the Veil, I have not read a similar declaration before a message is given to him. The message is almost the end of book 4, The Battalion's Heavens. And so this is what the message says. Until the time of the coming of Christ and Jesus of Galilee, evolution has proceeded along the lines of dominance of intellect and force of a man's right arm. That was the masculine element in the progress of the race of mankind. Where other notions prevailed, they were exceptional to the general trend of evolution, like small runnels tributary to the mainstream. We speak now of the general and not of the particular. Jesus came into the maelstrom of human activity. He threw his flask of oil. He explained to those who wouldn't listen to him that ultimate victory was not to the strong, either of arm or of intellect, but the meek shall inherit the earth. Inherit, not take it. You note that he spoke of the future. Men took up his teaching and acknowledged it to be both beautiful and true, if practicable. For 2 millennia nigh, they have been striving to blend the two together, to graft the meekness onto the dominance, to mix the two together in affairs national, international, social, and other. The two have failed to blend together, so much so that some have said that Christianity is not possible in public affairs. They are wrong in their conclusion. The teaching of Christ is the only durable and perpetual element in the life of earth. Now, I'm still reading, just to make sure you know. I'm still quoting, I should say. So men, therefore, have confessed that violence and force have proven fallacious. Their remedy hereto has been to retain the fallacious element and to try to soften it with the softer element of meekness. They have endeavored to retain to the man in his dominance, while trying to soften that dominance with the feminine element of meekness. The result is a failure. Do you see the inference, my son? The one course left is abjuration of the fallacious element and the gradual emergence into the premier place in the world's life of the element of meekness, which is feminine. So let me talk about that. So Arnell, the spirit who talked to him on behalf of the spirit world, speaks about all of the progressive movements that have ended in violence and bloodshed, from the mass purges of the old communist Soviet Union to the concentration camps of North Korea and the prisons in Cuba, which house dissidents who only wish a voice in running their country. Think about how they've tried to create the Soviet man. Well, they tried to create him by murdering so many others. Think of Cambodia, where they murdered 6 million people. It was just horrible because they're trying to impose this, this communist regime where they need to have someone, into the mold that they wanted. Even the lighter forms of socialism turns into static regimes incapable of providing sustainable employment in the face of mountains of rules and regulations, all directed by hidden bureaucracy, which knows no master but its own endless quest to mandate even the smallest detail of daily life for millions of people. Each form of government that's been tried in the past eventually evolves into a quest to sustain their dominance over increasingly restive populace. When power has such great rewards, men will find a way to retain their advantages for as long as possible. We've all seen this. We all know that in our hearts, no matter the consequences for the constituents or the nation. We've seen that in politicians today. In every country, no matter how liberal the country is, these people, they want to retain power. So Arnell next describes the future. Again, remember, this is 1919. The past of the world has been men's past. The future of the world will become women's future. The woman have felt this stirring within her as a new thing to be brought forth for the salvation of her sex. That is an unworthy thought, because partial and therefore inadequate. When women brought forth a Savior aforetime, he came as a Savior not of a sex, but of a whole human race. Such will be the outcome of women's present throes. So the spirit world is speaking about women who, in their dedication to be free of any dominance, completely reject all men. Now, haven't we seen this in feminism, lately? Is that it's not just be having equal opportunity. It's rejecting all men. And again, that wasn't at all seen in 1919. They just wanted to vote, right? So this is so interesting, because you're seeing this happen right now. And we are being told that all of mankind needs the influence of women, not just other women. Now comes the part which I believe describes the current state of the women's movement. And again, anybody, please comment and tell me if you think I am wrong or you have a different view of things. This is a period where women desire to not only be on par with men, but to take on their baser attributes as well. This is what was told to Reverend G. Valwin. Feeling this new stirring within, she has set herself about preparing for her offspring. She has been making his clothes. I say his clothes, for the garments she has been making are for a man-child. For them, she has gone to the same market where men buy and sell their wares, and has challenged them in barter. We can do your work, says she, but she should not understand that she is putting new wine into an old wineskin. Well, they shall both perish together. Meantime, women must learn her lesson as man had to do. Man has learned where failure lies, yet does not know where to turn for success. With one hand, he holds fast to the past. The other he holds out to the future. But that hand is empty yet, and no one has taken hold, nor will do so until he let go of the past with the other. The woman is now doing as he did. She is seeking to join with him in dominance of affairs. Her future lies not in that way. Women shall not rule the race, neither solely nor with man conjointly. She shall guide the race hereafter, not rule it. Now, that's the end of the quote. Now, in my belief, and I could be wrong, no better description could be written of the current state of affairs in the beginnings of the 21st century than that what was written almost 100 years ago. In women's quest for equality and injustice, they are pursuing absolute parity with men in all things, such as demanding outrageous pays to CEOs, squeezing employees to increase the price of their stock, stabbing others in the back on their way to the top. All the grosser attributes of an animal who only wishes to take and dominate others. This is what Arnell means when he says putting new wine into old wineskins. And haven't we seen it? It's of course women deserve equal opportunity, but is the solution to be just as much as an equal SOB as everyone else, to cheat your employees, to cheat your customers? Is that what we want for the future of the world? Just to have more people or all act like men who try to dominate and steal whatever they can put their hands on? If the equality of women means they'll be just as corrupt, petty, and mean as men at the top, then all this means is that we'll have a greater pool of selfish and driven people to pick from. We've all seen that. Whereas respect and equal rights for all is a noble goal, the push for a different approach to regulating our organizations, running global and small businesses, and outreach to communities is of vital importance to altering our society to improve its moral quotient. A great percentage of men and women realize the moral sacrifice to climb the organizational ladder. I've seen it myself. I tried to climb. I started acting unfair to employees. I started stabbing people in the back, and I just morally, you can't believe the stress. It was just, I just couldn't do it anymore. And I really apologize even when I stepped over when I tried that, because there's exceptions, and there's some people who are always fair and wonderful, and they've risen to the top. And so I'm just talking generally, but I would think that most people hearing me would agree that to get to the top of any organization, you cannot be a nice, caring person. So one would hope that women would lead the way to retain one's humanity while in possession of greater responsibility. So decent and caring men and women could influence the levers of power for the good of all, not just the selected few. The spirit realm is telling us to realize that there is a better way, and that for women to retain their caring and kindness that they demonstrate to their families and loved ones, to carry that forward, the guiding organizations and society as a whole. Arnell ends his message with these closing words. Let me quote, "My son, it is very difficult, as I find it, to make in any way clear to you what this future leading of women shall be. For all such leading hereto among you have been in dual content in the human mind, namely the governing and the governed." Right? We've seen that. Let me finish reading here. "The dominant and the subservient. This duality has no place in future leading. Even the word leading has a sense of one company going on before the other company, following after, and that of compulsion. This is not the leading we have been shown as that which awaits the human race." Let me put it in this wise. It is manifest in the Christ of Jesus. In him, you see all the excellences of men without their accompaniment of traits unlovable and unlovely. And in him also blended, you see all the sweetness of the women without the weakness. So in the future shall the two, the man and the woman, become not two sexes, however perfectly assimilated to one or to the other, but two aspects of merely one sex soul. Where force rules the word is "I lead, you follow." Where love rules, there is no word needed, but heart beats out to heart, the message we go on together, beloved. Now, when will we reach this plateau? Arnell tells us that the change shall not come suddenly, but slowly as a glacier moves its weight down from the mountain to the ocean. And, we're seeing this, right? We're seeing this slow movement. It's been 100 years since this message. And as with other prophecies and what I've been reading you in this section, the possibilities of the future, the road. Oh, thank you. He said, "Muito bom." Very good presentation. Thank you so much. As with other prophecies in the chapter, the road will be long, right? It's when the Spirit World talks about our span, right? It's probably longer than our span of human vision takes us. The exact path will not be straight or smooth, but we are in this area where you can just see the culture between some sort of types of feminists and other types of feminists, and it's just very interesting. But so the exact path will not be straight or smooth, but it will lead to the objective eventually. And Elijah said yes, right? So at some time in the future, Earth will become a fair and impartial sphere where all men and women are respected, where those in position of authority wield their baton lightly and only in the interest of love and justice. That is what we are all working for. Now, let's go on to the next subject. And this is very interesting also. And this is talking about the spiral course of progress. And I've talked about how before in other talks, and of course you can see all my earlier talks on YouTube channel. I also have BitChute also. So you can go to my site, and on the right-hand navigation side, it will show you can subscribe to my YouTube channel or the BitChute channel, and you'll see, and then tell your friends about it too and share them. You'll see all my different episodes on the future, and also all my talks I've had so far on a Kardec Radio Facebook page. And then I've also done a lot of smaller 5, 6, 10-minute videos on more things like reincarnation and your future as a destiny as a high spirit. So I've done those too, which may be interesting to many people. And I've had there's a wonderful woman in Brazil who's actually putting subtitles in Portuguese on a lot of those. So please share my videos and so forth. So let's get back. Now we're going to be told about the spiral course of progress. And this is from Atlantis to the future of Earth. The Spirit Arnell talked to the Reverend G. Vaughn on Friday, March 15th, 1918, so 100 years, about the spiral path of civilization, how the spiral progress moved as the sun's meridian hit the Earth over the span of centuries. Now, he mentioned the technological progress of Atlantis and Lemuria. And the subsequent downfall as representative of the cycle of human achievement. First, Arnell spoke about the principle of the spiral, which is set in motion by the will of God, right? And as I've talked before, God has this will, right? And then higher spirits, such as Christ, they're not told to do every little detail, right? They say, this is what I want, right? And they're, broad directives. And of course, just like corporations work, you're given broad directives, and then people below that undertake, and then it all flows down into more and more spirits, right, are guiding us here on Earth. And that what we're told is that progress doesn't come in straight lines, but in ascending upward movement, which I've said before, with different velocities to maximize the perfection of what is being created. He gives us an example. The first motion of sensation is seen in the plant. And there you see clearly illustrated the spiral principle. The bean climbs spirally as do other climbing plants, some more explicitly and others less perfectly. The veins of the tree also tend to incline from the perpendicular as they traverse the trunk in its length. The plant, which climbs by tendrils, support themselves by a spiral hook. Seeds float afield or fall to the ground in a similar curve. All these are consequent on the principle, active as the vibrations proceed through the sun and reach the plant life on earth. These reproduce in miniature, thus this motion along the heavens of space, and in themselves mimic the orbits of the constellations. So everything, it's just amazing. The more you read with Reverend G. Bauman, and also you see the same concept in Kardec's book Genesis, right, where they talk about the earth. All these things they're telling us, the spirit world is telling us with these spiritist mediums. They're giving us so much information about where we are, who we are, why we're here. It's all there for us to see. It's so exciting. So therefore, the spiral is the central concept in the creation and evolution of mineral, vegetable, and animal life. It goes even further. We learn in spirals, as do the whole human race. That should not be a surprise to us. This is what else he says. On the other hand, where man is concerned, the principle is seen operative most in those matters, whereas individually is less apparent than is the general guiding mind of his race. Thus, civilization proceeds from east to west, from time to time encircling the earth. It obeys the lead of the earth's central sun. But the sun's meridian does not travel in a right line along the equator, but inclines now to the north, now to the south. Remember, the earth wobbles, right, as it goes. As the earth leans one way or the other, this motion of earth is a remnant of the ancient rule and shows earth origin from its nebular state, wherein the same spiral movement obtains. Even so, the path of civilization encircling the earth never crosses over the same region twice in succession. By the time the civilizing wave reaches the point of longitude which marks its former revolution, earth has inclined itself at the poles, the north southward and the south northward some degrees. As the path of the impact of the sun's radiation upon the earth is thus varied, so is the path of the onward march of civilization, which, by the way, is but another way of saying revelation. If you think of the location of Lemuria and Atlantis and their successors in the progress of human experience, you'll see my meaning. So, very interesting. So in spiritist literatures, there's also mention of Atlantis and Lemuria civilizations. In fact, it's one in the On the Way to Light by the Spirit Emmanuel to Chico Xavier. I have read where Atlantis reached an advanced state of technological understanding. Unfortunately, the level of technology did not meet the level of spiritual progress. Therefore, the spirit realm reset the base of knowledge for the human race. Now we can look at this, and we can see on a smaller scale a similar occurrence happened to Rome. So, whereby the institution of Rome were stellar in their organization and effectiveness, Roman society was bent on conquest and enslaving populations, not enlightening them. Therefore, the collective citizenry of Rome were sent back to the fields to toil in the Dark Ages, and to find their connection in nature and to set the stage for spiritual reawakening. If we march back from where Arnell talked about the wave of civilization, from Europe in the north, then the Mediterranean owned by Rome, backwards in time to Mesopotamia, India, China, and Egypt, one can detect a slight northward step to the dominant civilization. Hence, if one take India, Egypt, and China as the lowest point in our ancient history, then Atlantis and Lemuria were probably located closer to the equator. Arnell explains that each civilization reached an apogee and then could go no further due to their lack of spiritual advancement. He supplies an example. Now, let me quote to you what he said. The utilization of molecules of ether for the service of mankind is illustrative of this. You will note that the present advanced state, okay, this is written in 1919, of the branch of science was worked up to very gradually. We start with the process of combustion by which gas was liberated, heat was generated, and from this heat, steam was produced. This would follow by the application of the same gas, but discarding the intervening medium of steam. Then a finer system of etheric vibrations was pressed into service, and electricity now is fast supplanting steam. But another step forward has been taken. What you call wireless waves are beginning to be found more potent still. Now, all of this has been done before in varying degrees of perfection by scientists of those long ago civilizations, which have to you become also a mythical memory. And when he's talking about wireless waves, where are we now? Everything's wireless waves, right? Wireless, cell phones, everything. Of course, it was all told. Chico Xavier talked about cell phones in the 1930s. His mother talked to him about this, portable communication device. What do we have now? Smartphones. They're telling us we have done nothing new. So historians strive to explain the bitter downfall of the Roman civilization, all the learning that was lost with it. In our modern world, we think we are immune to such a fate. We have great industry, computers, worldwide computing, web connecting, everyone on the planet. Arnell even foresees the overall installation and use of electricity and utilization of radio waves for more than communication. And yet, Arnell tells us in 1919, 99 years ago, that all of this has been done before. Arnell is speaking to us in eons, not merely in thousands of years. What if we would ever dug deep enough in the lost continent of Atlantis? What marvels of technology would be unearthed, destroying our conceit that only our level of sophistication could have produced a gas engine, radio, television, and cell phones. This demonstrates the power of the spirit realm to take collective humanity on earth to where they must be in order to learn to first become spiritually civilized. Now, what he says next is truly astonishing. What he was said before wasn't. The next step is also seen ahead. It is the substitution of mental waves for the etheric waves. This is also some few of the highest and most progressed of those your forerunners compassed in their science. They were not allowed to give forth their knowledge to their fellow men who were not progressed morally enough to use it aright. Nor will it be given to the present race of men to perfect this as an exact science until they have further progressed in spiritual competency. Otherwise, harm would accrue to the race and not benefit. So there's some that, there's going to be these mental waves, right? That we're able to control things. This is our future when we become spiritually more advanced. Again, we are told that we shall only be allowed that which we can morally handle. This message is in 1919. Then, in 1969, men went to the moon. And there's a Brazilian program. It's called Data Limites, right? Data Limits, right? And it's on YouTube. It details a prophecy for Earth by Chico Xavier. And Chico spoke about this prophecy to his friends and on a Brazilian television program. He relayed what he was told by the spirit realm to warn mankind. And I'll summarize what he said. In 1969, when astronauts first landed on the moon, the coming meeting of the community of pure spirits, as promised by Emmanuel in the book On the Way to the Light, that was written in 1939, occurred. This was the third meeting. The first was the formation of the solar system, and the second is when Jesus Christ actually came to earth. This community of pure spirits, of which Jesus is a member, and according to what G. Vallowen says he's what the spirits implied was he was in charge of this committee. So there's a little discrepancy there, but I don't think it's that important. They met because they were worried about men traveling to the moon while our spiritual growth was still immature. I think we all admit that, right? We had nuclear weapons pointed at each other. The Cold War was at its height in 1969. I mean, not height, but it was tense. At a time when the world was on the constant brink of the nuclear war, the community of pure spirits wanted to take the earth back to another dark age to allow time for a collective spiritual maturity to take hold. What Emmanuel told, and what Chico told, was Christ interceded and asked for time. It was decided to give the earth 50 years. So hence, if the earth didn't have any nuclear war for 50 years, we would be allowed to continue our progress. The end date is July 2019, less than a year from now. If nuclear war occurred during this time period, the damage would be immense. Besides nuclear fallout, the earth itself would rise up and pay back for all the harm done to it over the centuries. The northern hemisphere would be devastated. Most land would be uninhabitable, and the military of the surviving countries would invade the southern hemisphere in order to have arable land. For instance, the U.S. would invade Latin America, as would China and Europe. Brazil itself would be broken into parts shared by the occupying powers, actually all of South America. On the other hand, If the world manages to reach 2019 without nuclear conflict, then wonderful events will unfold. Aliens will come to Earth and help promote dramatic improvements in medicine and technology. These aliens have been nervously watching Earth for some time. They have the capacity to transport themselves through great distances. What has not been known to us is that conflict on our planet sends out destructive negative waves which affect the entire galaxy. Hence, more advanced races are watching our progress. In fact, you actually saw this in the book No Solar, which, again, is the first book in a series by the Spirit Andrew Luis. It's actually also a movie, which I recommend. Look up Astral City or Celestial City. I think it's Astral City. You can rent it, I think, on YouTube for $3.99. Read the book No Solar. But they're talking about during World War II, other planets in our system tried to create kind of a barrier because the whole planet was, in this great world war, sending out so many negative thoughts. So remember, in the spirit world, we are what we think, right? Thought is action. That's why we're here on this earth. I mean, just regress for 1 minute. We're here on this earth to learn to become loving, calm, charitable, fraternal people. Because when we go in the spirit world, our thoughts are actions. And we're no one's going to give us, it's like giving your 10-year-old, hey, go drive the car. If we were allowed outside of our little sphere here on earth, we would be a destructive influence. That's why we're here on earth. That's why we go through life after life. We have to learn to control ourselves and to improve our character. So the aliens are cognizant of the power of the spirit world, and they work with the spirit realm in their endeavors. Just like us, the aliens are immortal souls who reincarnate, perish, and reincarnate again. In fact, some of the aliens may have had a life on Earth in human form in the distant past. Now, in 1919, Arnell ended the message to Chivalwan with this: but at the present cycle of progress will, in this matter, go beyond that of the cycle last preceding. For at this point in those days, they stopped and went no further. He's talking about Atlantis and Lemuria. I'll carry on with the quote. Their decline set in, and what they had come by gradually became absorbed in the spiritual spheres, to be conserved there until the next race had been prepared and brought to such a state of perfection as to qualify them to receive it back again, with added momentum inspired into it by the guardians during the ages in which it had been resetted, quiescent in their charge. Call the spiritual spheres interior and the earth sphere external, and you have the same principle of movement reproduced, which we have already attached to the atom of ether. So he's talking about different spirals, right? So therefore, what he's told us is we have a choice. We can move forward into a land of technology from aliens and harnessing mental rays, or we can be forced to repeat a whole grade, all of humanity. The entire world could be set back a couple of levels so we may rethink our intransigent stance that our wants, our selfish ways, always outweighs love, charity, and fraternity. Arnell notifies us that our destiny is in our hands. Our collective actions and character determine our future. If we demonstrate responsible government, formulate peaceful solutions between countries, and live to care for our fellow humans, we shall be deemed worthy of graduating to the next level. The reward for all of us is to become a planet of regeneration, where there's peace between all nations. People are led by those who have shown superior morality, and the golden rule is mainly followed by all races and cultures. So I hope that excites some people and gives an explanation of why these things happen, right? Why are these great upheavals? And it's like you take a class. It's like the collective humanity takes this class and we collectively fail it. And the teachers say, well, they all need to retake this class. They all need, right? And that's what happens. We are on this campus called Earth. And as much as sometimes we'd like not to be, connected to these other people who, we really may not like very much, or we look down upon, we actually are. So that's why we're on Earth. We need to help as many people as possible. That doesn't mean when Jesus Christ says the meek shall inherit the earth, as I talk about women, it doesn't mean that you let everyone walk over you. That means you help guide by love. But sometimes you have to be, a bit abrupt, and you may have to show your indignation, not anger, but your indignation. Say, no, you're not allowed to do that, right? If there's someone who robs or whatever, they still have to go to prison. But we, as much as possible, work and help other people. And so this is how the spirit realm guides the human race. We are led onto an upward spiral trajectory, giant leaps forward, followed by seemingly catastrophic retreats, but which are in fact required to build a solid foundation for the next stage of progression. And as I said before, this has happened to the human race multiple times. And the Spirit Arnell spoke to us about a great mission to bring more spirituality also into science. Now, remember, as I said before, we're trying to get material progress versus spiritual progress. And and we said technological progress has been destroyed before. So now, how are we going to get this culture into knowing about spirituality? How is that going to be as important as buying the latest iPhone or Android phone, right? Or the latest tennis shoe? How's that going to happen? And a lot of us, we follow science. So this is what he said. So we did not destroy your science by cataclysm, meaning our current culture, as has happened in the past ages, not once nor twice. Interesting, isn't it? No, for cramped and limited as it was, it ministered to a progress as a whole, and so we held to that degree in reverence. So we transmuted it by expansion, and so are continuing it today. So very interesting what he said. So I have written before how spirits have told us about the fall of Atlantis and Lemuria, right? And I've told you about that in our book. Now, in the book Edgar Cayce on Atlantis by his son Edgar Evans Cayce, communications reveal the breakup of Atlantis wasn't just a single event, but happened in waves over a very long period. In Edgar Cayce's readings for people, he explored their past lives. In some cases, their past lives during the period of Atlantis was exposed. Edgar Evans Cayce, the son, cites readings which mention advanced technology as far back as 50,000 BC. There is an instance of gathering of leaders from different nations to combat the problems of being overrun by animals. Here's one such reading. I'll quote from the Edgar Cayce book. In the period when this became necessary, there was a consciousness raised in the minds of the groups in various portions of the earth, much in the matter as would be illustrated by an all-world broadcast in the present day of a menace in only one particular point, or in many particular points, and the gathering of those heated as would be the scientific minds of the present day in devising ways and means of doing away with that particular kind of menace. As to the manner in which these were gathered, it was very much as if the Graf, thinking Graf Zeppelin, were to start to various lands to pick up representatives, or those who were to gather, or were to cooperate in that effort. And as this then was in that land which had long since lost its identity, except in the inner thoughts or visions of those who have returned or are returning in the present sphere, the ways and means devised, whereas those that would alter or change the environments which those beasts needed or the necessary for their subsistence in the particular portion of the sphere, our earth, that they occupied at the time. And this was administered much in the same way or manner as if they were sent out from various central plants, that which is termed in the present the death ray, or the supercosmic ray that will be found in the next 25 years. When he wrote that. So the reading of the dates of the meeting of the Atlantes to have taken place in the year 50,720 BC. The reading itself was given on February 21st, 1933. Approximately 25 years later, the microwave and lasers were being actively worked on. Edgar Cayce dates a second large continent shaking event at around 28,000 BC and the final breakup of Atlantis at around 10,000 BC. So Edgar Cayce wasn't a spiritist medium, hence I do not know the accuracy of what was revealed as he communed with the spirits. I state his reading as to present a possibility of what the Spirit Arnell referred to when he spoke of resetting human civilizations. Was it as astonishing as the time frame mentioned by Cayce? Certainly in our present time, we have not detected concrete signs of an advanced civilization, although there have been hints and objects uncovered which are unexplainable. In our current cycle of history, we usually cite the beginning of written history around 4000 BC. And yet, for Arnell to be correct, there must have been much earlier cycles of human development. Therefore, for past advanced civilizations with technology on par with ours, as it was in the beginning of the 20th century, going back 50,000 years is not an unthinkable starting point. Between that time and the beginning of what we note is the start of civilization, multiple rises and falls could indeed occur, right? Think about within the space of 6,000 years, when we say written history started around 4000 BC. So, interesting, is it not? Now let's talk about how long we think humans, our current science, how long we think humans have been here. So books psychographed by the great spiritist medium Chico Xavier may help with placing possible epochs of human history. So reading the books inspired by Andre Luis and psychographed by Chico Xavier, there are references to interesting information divulged to us during conversation or lectures recorded by the spirit Andre Luis. In the book Liberation, first published in Portuguese in 1949, Andre tells us of a lecture about the need to assist spirits in the lower zones and the abyss, which they call it like the dark abyss, in which the following statement is made. And this is what I do in my book. On my book, How I Regard My Spirits. I try to take, on this book, which you can get on my website and click on that book in either Kindle or paperback, is I try to bring all this literature together, the Spiritist literature, Reverend G. Vaughn Owen, and other interesting things that people talked about. This is what was made in this book, Liberation, published in 1949. We know today that the human spirit, taken as a whole, has had the ability to reason for exactly 40,000 years. Nevertheless, with the same furious impetus which Neanderthals killed one another with hatch blows, humans of modern times, regarded as a glorious area of world powers, exterminate their brothers and sisters with firearms. Now, that didn't sound right. We've been told humans have been on Earth for around 350 to 400,000 years. But then I looked up modern humans in Wikipedia, and this is what I discovered. Anatomically, modern humans evolved from the archaic Homo sapiens in the Middle Paleolithic about 200,000 years ago. Then the transition to behavioral modernity with the development of symbolic culture, language, and specialized lithic technology happened around 50,000 years ago, according to many anthropologists, although some suggest a gradual change in behavior over a longer time span. So, hence our brains must have evolved to a state around 40,000 years ago to where the spirit realm determined was the minimum level of reason. Then I looked up more information. And this is what I read in Wikipedia. Lauren Cordain, now, although we should not ever trust Wikipedia perfectly, there's a lot of things wrong in that, but these things I think are directionally correct. Lauren Cordain contrasts the anatomical and behavioral perspectives on this question. For 2 million years, until the agricultural revolution of roughly 10,000 years ago, our ancestors were hunter-gatherers, so she thinks. The adaptive pressures inherent in that environment niche have exerted a defining influence on human genetic makeup. The portion of our genome that determines basic anatomy and physiology has remained relatively unchanged over the past 40,000 years. Although anatomically modern humans first appeared perhaps 100,000 years ago, modern humans' behavior first became recognizable in the fossil record about 50,000 years ago. Between 50 and 40,000 years ago, their creative and technological innovation increased dramatically. During this period, skeletal robusticity decreased somewhat, suggesting that less muscular force was required for a daily task, end quote. So here's the key sentence. And this is in our, very, fragile scientific knowledge that I'm sure, we're probably wrong off by 10,000 years or so. The portion of our genome that determines the basic anatomy and physiology remained relatively unchanged for the past 40,000 years. A book that was published in 1949, before carbon dating, before DNA sequencing, before computers were anything other than used by the governments, pegged the beginning of our ascent in the world of reasoning and increased use of technology in the same time period as our modern genetic science. One more little piece of evidence that we're being guided along our path. The spirit realm created the conditions so that the basic humans could evolve, and then most probably subtly modified our DNA to give us that next mental boost. This is what's going to happen when we become a planet of regeneration. We're not going to be the same people. We're going to be a different race. We're going to have enhancements. Our brain, Henri Louis said in other books that we're not, in the other scientists say we're using hardly any of our brain. There's so much in there. Think of how powerful Chico Xavier was. Chico Xavier could read people's thoughts. Chico Xavier could put his hand on a book and know what the book said and also know the attitude of the author. He is the most amazing medium and person since Jesus was on earth. A physical brain which could be powerful enough to connect to our paraspirits and process the exchange of information between our spirit and our bodies. Between 50 to 40,000 years ago, one of us started our first reincarnations on Earth, beginning a long climb from being a primitive planet to civilized behavior. Given the span of time described, Edgar Cayce's reading of over 50,000 years ago may not be too far-fetched. After all, we believe that only hunter-gatherers were present on Earth about 5,000 years ago. And within 7,000 years, we've attained our present level of technology. Hence, if humans achieved our present state of evolution approximately 50 to 40,000 years ago, there would have been plenty of time for sophisticated civilizations to rise and fall, to rise and fall. And as you know, Arnell told us, it's not just once, not twice, but more. The High Spirit Arnell communicated with Reverend Jiva Alwan, who wrote this account in Book 4, The Battalions of Heavens, in 1919. Arnell told Jiva Alwan of a great endeavor to herd humanity to higher levels of spirituality, so that science and an application to destructive possibilities could be tempered by moral judgment to allow humanity to continue progressing without the need for a step backward. According to Arnell, this great push forward has been going on for centuries. The objective is to introduce an aspect of spiritual wisdom to the pure intellectual reasoning demanded by science. Arnell describes the process. This is what he said. Under our pressure thus applied, it expanded until the boundary of the material was reached. But the impetus we had given to this material science could not there be stayed. It gradually pressed onward on its outbounds and began to emerge here and there beyond, so that the sharp line so arbitrarily drawn between material and spiritual began to sag and to bulge, and here and there a small breach was made. Small at first, enlarging later, but small or large, mark me, no such breach was ever repaired. The dike once gapped. The steady, irresistible pressure, all encircling without, found inlet, and from time, a steady stream of spiritual content flowed increasingly into your science of earth, and today continued. End quote. Now, am I seeing that all scientists adhere to a strict agnostic or atheist creed, since that is the current state of pure group pressure? The truth is different. In a Rice University study by Elaine Howard Eklund, she found a significant percentage of religious scientists. This is what she said. The study found that 18% of scientists attended weekly religious services, compared with 20% of the general use population. 15% considered themselves very religious versus 19% of the general population. 13.5% read religious texts weekly, compared with 17% of the population, and 19% pray several times a day versus 26% of the population. Very interesting. Now, when I said these percentages, they may not include all those who decline to reveal the extent of their spirituality. They may not consider themselves religious. They may consider themselves spiritual due to the fear of being ostracized for holding a significant different views from the group at large, or from individuals who don't associate themselves with any organized religious groups, but are spiritual persons. Hence, what Arnell was describing in 1919, which must have taken place at an earlier time, is still having an effect today. Science does not erase God or the spirit realm from all consideration, nor will it ever, for with wisdom deriving from a faith in better moral diversity, more and new devices and discoveries will be utilized for the common good, as opposed to dominance or profit over weaker groups. This all ties into what was revealed to us in Spiritism. It all ties into what Allan Kardec has said, the triple aspect of Spiritism. The future of science combines and intersects with knowledge about the spirit realm and what it means to us on earth. Spiritism does not ask you to possess blind faith. In fact, it discourages it. According to Spiritism, miracles don't occur. Every phenomenon has an explanation. Right now, do we have absolute proof that God or spirits exist? No, as of yet, no. But Spiritism tells us that one day it shall occur. For Spiritism is not meant to be a fossilized dogma, but an ever-expanding pool of knowledge. Knowledge that will be brought to us by our scientists and by the spirit world. As we grow morally and technically, more will be presented to us. This is why Spiritism was brought to us in the 1850s. Jesus couldn't have come down at, during the time of Rome and said all this, what he told to Allan Kardec. They said, no. What he told to the mediums that Allan Kardec codified, people would not have accepted it. But as we become socially and culturally and technologically more advanced, we will be told more and more because we can understand it. Spiritism is a dynamic doctrine. It has three aspects that work together to provide the scaffolding which encompasses the ever-growing pool of knowledge. First is philosophy, right? The Spirit's book laid the foundation for the relationship between the spirit world and the physical world. The eternal questions for our creation, our creator, our destiny, and our souls are all covered within Spiritism. Also in the New Testament and the Old Testament. Second is science, and then also the teaching of Buddha, the Socrates, Zoroaster, all those. It's Hinduism. You'll see the commonality and all that because they're all sent by the leader of our earth, Christ. Second is science. Science will someday walk hand in hand with philosophy and science. It will prove the existence of the spirit realm and the plurality of multiple dimensions with intelligent life. What is not in question is the groundswell of studies about near-death experiences and the retention of thought after all physical brain activity has ceased. The internet allows people to compare their stories of premonition, talking with spirits and mediums who have knowledge about personal facts, but could be improbable for them to know. So these things are happening. And so the third leg of the stool is religion. Religion will transform from places of worship to places of education, assistance, and healing. In the future, the basic precepts of the Spiritist doctrine, such as reincarnation, will be absorbed by the religions of the world. Eventually, all will realize there's a universal moral code. There's no such thing as moral relativity. A set of divine laws that implanted to each of us so we may instinctively sense the right path. Whereas our desire for material goods often masks our good intentions, we eventually realize that what we should or should not have done. And this is precisely the basis for our struggle on earth. Once we are able to follow the road of love, charity, and selflessness, we shall leave this period of education on the planet of atonement where we are now and begin the next stage as the earth transforms to a planet of regeneration, where we will see, as I said before, not only will the environment, the government, as we're talking about women and being led with love and guidance and not being told what to do, but being together and moving together. But we will be led all in one. So anyway, this is what we're working for, a paradise where wars, hate, and jealousy are vastly diminished or eradicated. And I want to thank everyone, especially Eliza. Yep, I'm glad that she's having an Evangelo at home at 9 p.m. And of course, we do that thing at our house too. And I'm glad she said that because to us, that is so wonderful. We do, what is it? It's like God at home. We study Spiritism, what we do. And this is with, the parents and the kids around the table. We start with a prayer. We put some water in the middle of the table, and we start with a prayer. And then we take a spirits book out. We take one of the books by Chico Xavier or Allan Kardec, and we kind of review it. We talk about it. We let things go off in tangents, especially with the kids, right? As they talk about things, you'd be surprised. And then we have an ending prayer. And this can last, as little as 30 minutes or an hour. Usually you take an hour, but it's whatever. Especially you have little ones, you don't want, their attention span's only so long. But what this happens, if you do this the same time each night, like the same day, like once a week, what we do once a week, let's say Thursday night, or they do it Sunday night at 9 p.m. Then the spirits will know you start doing this weekly, and then the spirits will be with you in that meeting and will help. Because you'd be surprised, especially how the children will open up and be able to verbalize things they just couldn't before. And I think that's because they have help. Because you know how you talk to like a 10-year-old and you go, oh, I don't know. It's amazing how when you talk about things, they're actually talking, they verbalize things. And then at the end, we all drink, after the prayer, we drink the water because the spirits around us magnetize the water. It's a wonderful thing. And I recommend it to every household. So I want to end there. I want to ask everyone, please share this video, talk to your friends about nwspiritism.com. Come to my YouTube or BitChute channel and subscribe, tell your friends, share videos. I think Spiritism just tells you so much. I cannot stress to you how much has decreased my nervousness, my stress level, because I understand why we're on earth, and when bad things happen, I just, I'm not just, I don't sit there and be completely passive, but I understand why. I try and keep my attitude correct and my calmness. So anyway, God bless everybody. And I want to thank you for being here and listening to me tonight. God bless.